Thanks for staying with us. So there are lots of current untold economic hardship in Nigeria. Many parents are finding it extremely difficult to cater for their children's school fees and other academic obligations due to the increment in tuition fees, rising food inflation, incessant strike in the prices of consumables, as income and salary remain the same in recent years and a bid to generate revenue at all costs. Now, many are complaining and people are worried that the rising cost is making it difficult for them to even meet their academic obligations for their children. What are your thoughts on this? What are your experiences? Have you experienced this? Later on the show, we'll be having the president of the National Association of Proprietors of Private Schools, Chief YourView, will be joining us in a moment. But first, we'd like to hear your own views on this. You can call us on the numbers on your screen. Tope, let me start with you. And this conversation is always difficult for me because as I'm growing and working with the Ministry of Education and so I have some information. I'm thinking to myself, okay, yes, we would like to complain about the fact that things aren't getting better. People are not earning more. School fees seem to be increasing. But the question is, how do you think we can cope? Especially because everywhere we know, people pay for education. Education is not cheap. Over the years, education in many countries is not cheap. But in our own country, education is subsidized. A lot of times, our public schools are subsidized. And what we are paying, if we see the equivalent to other economies, even within Africa, we see it's almost nothing. But we keep complaining. Though, as I said, rise of inflation, obviously, is not making us earn as much anymore. So what do you think we can do?
We need to unpack it. Primary education, globally, because it's seen as basic education.
Yes.
If you don't get it right at primary, you'll be churning out, your citizens will not be able to add value to your economy if they don't get that basic foundation. That, for me, in every serious economy, should be free.
Absolutely.
And it should be quality free. And in many serious economies, it is quality free. The challenge we have is, let's not use Lagos as a benchmark. Lagos, despite the fact none of us have our children in public schools, by the way, and majority of Lagosians don't have their children, let me not use majority of middle-class Lagosians don't have their children in the public schools at primary level because they feel it is not going to give us the quality to add the value we want our children, the quality of value we want our children to add in the future. So I totally understand the complaints. The government might say they are trying because they are looking at the books. But we need to, yes, look at the books, but look at the human beings as well. And when you look at the human beings, you realize that there's a lot of room for improvement at that basic level. Of course, as you go higher in terms of secondary school, it will be costing more. University education worldwide is cheap. It is expensive as compared to Nigeria. Even the private universities in Nigeria are still cheap as compared to international universities abroad. That's the truth. So on the university level, I don't think that our private universities are doing badly, but our public universities have been on strike for over 200 days. So obviously, it's nothing to write home about. Do we have an educational crisis? Yes. Do we have a financial educational crisis? Yes, because everybody is now struggling to make money by every means possible to give their children a bit of advantage. And that is putting a lot of strains on families.
So the strain, so I'm not linking the strain with the level of education we expect. So, for example, I'm a parent, and I'm saying, your tuition fees are too expensive, I can't afford it. And the teacher is, the owner is saying, listen, I can't pay good teachers with what you're paying me. You pay me 25,000 naira, for example, per term. If you look at some federal schools, you're paying me that. I can't feed your children. I can't pay the cleaners. I can't pay the gatesman. I can't pay the police because now we're having security issues. I can't pay my teachers. There are many factors. So how do we begin to marry our economic and social realities with the educational system or the quality of education we expect?
So the government has a huge problem, and all of us agree. Because the issues we're complaining about, the Catholic Church is saying that the churches are having to increase budget for security, almost more than infrastructure. As a country, too, we're increasing budget for security. Schools are increasing budget for security, almost more than what is going into the system to develop the system. So the issue is, even if we take away the costs and the challenges of the cost, the country itself and the environment has put a lot of strain on everybody.
Yeah. So should parents... let me somebody come in here.
As you are talking, my mind is just thinking we need to find creative ways to be able to afford education. And I guess this is where parents will come in. Also, financial institutions do this now. All sorts of insurance to help with parents, as you know, towards education. You're putting money aside. When you have a boom, you're able to put some money aside in projection of what could happen in future. Those are the ways I feel that parents can help. But the truth is, education will only keep getting more expensive, whether we like it or not. In another, I was talking to someone much younger than me. I was saying, by the time you start having children, the amount, she was talking about a school bag I got. I said, by the time you start having children, this school bag will be 100 times the price. It's just the reality of life. And the only thing we have to do is keep working hard. And then this is where, whether we like it or not, this is where we now determine the sort of government and leaders that we want. They need to understand that these are the realities on ground and these are our issues. And what we want is, okay, create for us an enabling environment. We can take away security costs from schools if the government is able to do its job concerning protecting schools, making sure that insecurity is not a problem anymore. We're talking of minimum wage. We have to do better. We need to block all the holes where it comes to our revenue. We're talking about theft in the oil industry. We cannot be losing that amount of money, I mean, as a government, and still going through insecurity and still going through all the other economic challenges. Plus that, our government needs to sit up. Our people now understand these are our challenges, and so it's only those who can make sure that these things are solved, going forward, that can help us.
So I didn't want to fall into the trap, because the usual thing for us, when we hear economic hardship, we can't pay school, and just come and lament. I didn't want to go through that route, because we do it all the time. But sometimes we have to look at it holistically. It's one thing, yes, we can sit down and say, lament, I can't pay school, I don't have increasing tuition, I can't afford this, it's expensive. But what would you rather have? Would you rather have a school that is not being able to pay their teachers, and teachers don't show up in school to be able to teach my child? Nima, let me come to you on your thoughts. Yes, I know we are complaining that the tuitions have increased, we can't afford it, economic realities are before us, but do you think our cry is justifiable at this time?
It is, and especially because government has forgotten and neglected what is most important. So we constantly see the Naira losing value. We see the inflation going higher. We see, families having to decide how costs should go. In those days, parents would just do a scale of preference and take out one thing and provide what is most important, what is priority, which is education for children. It has become a necessary expenditure. You cannot neglect it. And the cost of quality education has even become more necessary in our present times. So parents cannot now scale it and say, let's remove this, let's remove that. Which is why when you see NLC go on strike, sometimes, because of the way they carry that issue, and maybe water it down, you might not see the seriousness of what we're talking about. An average Nigerian banker here, what he earns and what's the present reality of the value of what he earns, his purchasing power is so low compared to somebody doing the same job in some other climes. And so you see why they're asking government, you need to do more. Nobody hates government. We just want to be able to afford basic. So if I earn 200,000 and the value of 200,000 can give me my basic, who will be on strike? The lecturers presently are saying, federal government is proposing a 23% increase, which will put them at 800,000. They're saying, back. Because the reality is that as a lecturer, maybe by the time you get to professorship, your first child is already in university. If you put the value of quality university education, which is not here, on that money, you can afford it, except you are cutting corners. And so the corruption will continue to go. People will continue to cut corners, which is why we're asking government to do better. Nobody's asking government to subsidize everything. Make it work. Create an avenue where the Naira is exchanged and is strengthened. What you earn, you will not have to look out. People will be thinking, until I earn dollar, until doctors leave this country, they don't get the value of their profession.
You're taking an interesting part. Because this is the part that I'd like to talk about, this thing you're talking about here, but I don't want to veer off into this. But let me go on the break when we come back. Because we need our dollars. And there are so many of us squandering our dollars that is not helping our own economy. And we know it, but let's go on a break. When we come back, we'll talk about education. Stay with us, right back.
Stick to education.
Thanks for staying with us. You see, this conversation was getting interesting because Nima was taking us to the issue of dollar, but let us not go there, because if we go there,
I want to take you to the issue of dollar. It's not just dollar.
Yeah, I get the point.
The fact that almost
we are not able to invest in education
Manufacturers Association of Nigeria last week were in the papers all through asking state governments, asking federal governments to find a way to assist businesses not to shut down.
I get you.
When the naira is not being exchanged for anything. Absolutely. I'm not talking about you having dollar. I'm saying that we don't have anything
the reason why I was laughing
as a country
was that over the weekend,
naira.
I bought this. I made this lovely pot of stew that had crab in it. Those big crabs, so luscious. And as I was eating and enjoying my stew, I said, okay, this is dollar. Because these are crabs that are not in Nigeria. They're those foreign crabs that are imported. So somebody has gone to use our hard-earned dollar to go and import this crab that I'm cooking in my pot. So I am equally part of the problem. This is our desire to just... That's why I'm saying that I was laughing when you're talking, because if we all check, we are all parts of, we're all contributing somewhat to the fact that people like you or you who want to do real business to manufacture so government can have money to invest in schools properly. We are part of the problem. But let's not go there. Let's go back to education.
Education. So here is one thing that I find very confusing. I realize that a lot of parents groan and complain out of thinking that it is the most expensive school that will give my children the best foundation. Not necessarily true. Sometimes it might seem like it's a small mushroom school, but the time that you as a parent invest in your child and taking your child through that process of educating them. So they come out from school, you check what they've done, you go through that process, it's a sacrifice. But in turn, it can give your children a better outcome in the future. We have this conversation. We're talking about, what schools should our children go to? There are many schools around me that pay like ×2 what I pay for my children's school fees. My children's school fees is not cheap, but compared to all the other schools around, I'm so grateful for missionary missionary primary schools, and I'm hoping to move it to a missionary secondary school just so that we can remain in that affordable bracket. But many people are struggling to put their children in high-end schools when they cannot afford it.
Okay, so that's one angle. That's one angle, talk about. But you see, I'm looking forward to getting Mr. Odubela, because he's I think he's the president of private schools. And my issue is that lots of low, I don't want to call them low income, let me just say low income private schools are out there. And many of them are not delivering value. So, for example, I am a tailor right now, or I'm a driver, and I just don't want my child to go to public school because public schools just have this bad reputation. So I want to feel like I'm taking my child to a private school. And I find a lower income private school. I don't talk about international school. It's already international for me, and I take my child there. Now, those ones increase their prices indiscriminately because they're not being properly regulated. Those ones are the ones that take advantage of Nigeria. So these people are crying and saying, I can't afford school fees. They are forcing us to pay XYZ because many of these private schools who are not at that level are just taking advantage of these poorer low-income earners who don't want to take their children to public school. So the real problem is who is regulating this huge bracket, because there are lots of them.
So I'm in that space where I feel like, when our missionary schools came, there was no AC in classes. You know, they didn't have AC in classes. The entire money that was going to the school was for the basic. Pay the teachers. And they pay the teachers what teachers deliver. Yeah. The facility was basic facility. Yeah. It was not all the touche, screen, all of that. No. There was barest minimum, and they were able to deliver. The mushroom primary schools just need, not mushroom, the low-income, smaller primary schools just need to focus on what is most important. And what is most important is can we get the teachers to deliver? If all the income in the school is going towards paying quality teachers, they can afford to deliver with small money.
Now, where would they go you reach soon? Even the high-income private schools charge as high as whatever they think they are worth. But the teachers don't get that. Ask one-on-one each of the teachers. You see how frustrated some of them are. In schools where they give them loan to go and take courses, they will rip them. During COVID, we had to intervene and pay some teachers, remember, who were teaching in private schools because public school teachers were still getting paid. But the private school teachers were excruciatingly suffering.
Absolutely.
So that the school is charging high doesn't make it commensurate to what the quality of education or the services the teachers are rendering. So that's another matter. That goes back to the Nigerian
factor. We, the people, we, the school proprietors, are we doing the needful? Let me take this call. Good morning. Are you there?
They're businessmen. All they think about is profits.
Good morning, sir. Are you there? Not all of them.
Yes, I'm here.
You're live. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Hello.
You're live on TV. Go ahead, madam.
Well, this question of education in Nigeria in general, we have to be honest with ourselves. All these outside countries that we are comparing Nigeria with, education is expensive and this and that. They have worked for so many years continuously on their education system. They have invested in it. Most of them are giving grants, they are giving loans, they are giving so many things that the country is so good economically that when those children finish school, they are going to be able to pay back. We don't have that structure here. The government schools are not good. What our political appointees and all the government things are consuming, if they cut it into half and put it into education, this country is a better place. Number two, since when I was in primary school, they say education is free. It has never been free. Because I thought in government primary school, I went to school in 1955 to something in primary school. It was never free. I carried my exercise book, my mother bought. I didn't have standard. School uniform was bought from my mother. The only thing we didn't do is to pay teachers. Look, we have to invest in education in this country. There is a lot of wastage in governance here. If you put it into education, it will be better. Now, who doesn't want good education for his child? Even if you are telling you are participating in the market. You want children,
Thank you very much. You see, there was an argument recently. See the model colleges that have been paying 25,000 naira per term for many years. And I think recently the Ministry of Education tried to review it to 75,000 naira because they actually have to break it down. If I'm paying 25,000 naira per term, you cannot. There's no way I can pay my teachers. There's no way that I think I'm not sure if it's feeding. The feeding also. I think it's also feeding is also free. So feeding is not free, but it's part of the cost. I can't buy your children food with this amount anymore. It's no longer sustainable. And then there was a huge uproar. No, you can't change the school fees, 25,000 naira. I was thinking, the reality is that as much as I agree, yes, our economic realities are not optimal, but the truth is that there are times we have to review. And Nigerians will be willing to pay for the service that we demand. So yes, school, you're right in the sense that school is not free all, because even though you say school free education, you still buy a few things here and there. But parents must be willing to pay for good. If you can't complain about the educational system, if you don't pay, one of the private universities, I remember one of the proprietors of the private universities in Nigeria was saying confidently how much he pays his school, his professors, his lecturers. They're well paid. They're in comparison with them and other universities abroad. He's paying them well. So now, they can't go on strike because they have a functional university.
Yes.
But ASU is saying the same thing, that you're not paying us in comparison, but what you're paying us is not commensurate to what our counterparts are earning across board. So, yes, she's right. We're not investing in education. But what is the role we also are playing in this matter? Yeah,
so if you talk about... so that is why people would go to more expensive schools. And the idea of more expensive schools, of giving investigation, because a parent does not just put a child in school because, oh my God, look at how expensive it is.
Must be good.
They do their proper investigation. What are the things that they are providing with this amount of money? And parents are making sacrifices. That a child is in a particular school does not mean that you're largesse. There are some people that are able to put their children in a particular school, but they don't have the luxuries that you have decided to put your child in less expensive schools that you have. So a parent can decide, oh, I'm going to put my child in an affordable school, which is affordable to that person, or low-income school. But I'm going to do this with my money, do that with my money. I'm doing self-care with my money. Do you understand? Some people are like, put the self-care aside. My investment is in this child. And whatever. So parents are constantly having to juggle these different options.
Yeah.
And whether we like it or not, good education costs money. Whether we like it or not, teachers that do their best and give their best usually are in schools that pay them, what they are worth.
Yeah.
You have dissatisfied teachers, you have dissatisfied workers in school where, they are supposed to be doing so well. And they're giving their best, and they're not seeing that in the amounts that they're being paid as salaries. And parents too, after a while, I feel that even as a parent, if you go to a school where you're paying a certain amount of money, it's good to find out how much these teachers are earning. It should be one of the things that you look at, because eventually it will tell you how dissatisfied a teacher could be and how it may eventually, affect you.
Yeah.
So the truth is, education will be expensive from now going forward, but the government can do something, especially when it comes to basic education. Basic education should not be expensive, truly. You pay the teachers, you provide infrastructure. The infrastructure is done once every 5 years, once every 10 years. Then you pay the teachers. And, I mean, most people, and public school, people going to public school, is not really about, oh, I don't want to be seen going to public school. It's because of the reputation it has had over the years. Right. There are people who can beat their chest today and say, I went through public schools, public primary, secondary, and university. And it's a thing of pride because the schools have proven. But over the years, we've seen public schools just become, just a structure. And people that are not educated or willing to be teachers are just pushed there. And what do you expect?
Let me take this call from Olariwaju from London. It's been holding. Good morning. Are you there?
Hello, good morning.
You're live. Go ahead, please.
Thank you for keeping me waiting for 10 minutes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No problem. I want to say something. You always compare Nigeria education with other people abroad. I want you to realize something. The standard of living is different. Like Elijah said before, if they are paying 50,000 and that 50,000 is enough and they can manage it, both their education for transportation to go to work, there won't be any corruption. You were here last time. Remember, ask your brother, he got a business here.
Let me ask you a question.
Let me tell you something. No income earner here. Government help them. Everything is from government. They help them if you are low income earner. Right. I'm telling you. Okay, someone taking 30,000 in Nigeria. How can he pay for school fees? How can he go to work? It's not right. It's not good. Right. Government need to do better.
Okay. Olariwaju, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
A lot of Nigerian doctors that live in your country, in the UK right now, they were trained and raised in this country. We sent them to school. Nigeria sent them to school, right? Now, imagine the cost of what we used to send them to school. Can that figure educate anybody in London? Somebody who graduated as a doctor in Nigeria, the amount of money he paid through school, can that money pay somebody in the UK to go to even secondary school? That's the conversation we're having. No. So what I'm saying is that we're not comparing economies. What I'm saying is that if you want us to improve education, there's a part of the government, the smallest and easiest and cheapest conversation is say, oh, it's government's fault. Yes, that's a given. A 2-year-old baby will tell you that. Standard. But we must also remember that we the people have something to do in this also. That's the conversation, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, Morai, let me ask you a question. Okay, are you talking about only doctor? What about other people studying other subjects, like
economic, business, administration?
Business, okay, people supposed to do 3 years course or 4 years course.
Yes.
They spend 7 years.
Absolutely.
And then every year these people have to pay money.
Absolutely.
To the school. So how do you work that out? Someone he has someone in university, he has a child in primary school, he has a child in secondary school. How can he maintain? How can he do without any corruption?
All right, thank you, Mr. Olariwaju. Thank you for engaging me there for a second. Let me go on a quick break. When we come back, I'll take Mr. Udubela, who's been waiting to speak to us. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us. So joining the conversation is the president of the National Association of Proprietors of Private Schools, Chief Yomi Udubela. Good morning, sir. Are you there?
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So there are a few layers we've been talking about before you came in. We're talking about cost of schools have increased, and parents are complaining because they can't afford the these increments in tuition fees, school books, and all the various things they need to pay in schools. That's the one end. Second issue we have raised is I would like to say maybe the low income, I don't know if that's the right word, public-private schools that are not well regulated. So many of those schools sometimes increase fees without proper regulation. So they do it indiscriminately based on their own on circumstances. What's your association doing to curb that indiscriminate increase by these schools who just do it without any proper regulation?
All right, thank you so much for having me in on this discourse. I want to start from the last questions that has to do with school regulation. Predominantly, regulation of schools, generally both private and public, is the statutory role of government under the Ministry of Education, then with the Department of Quality Assurance. And they are saddled with the responsibility according to the law, and they are to ensure that all schools, both public and private, follow the laid down minimum rules and regulations. We can only do an oversight function. The oversight function is to call government attention to any shortcomings that is witnessed in any of these schools, and this we have done to the best of our knowledge through engaging government in several fora, through our national conferences, through meeting with the Ministry of Education of all the states and including the federal government, through the National Council on Education, that is the highest policy making on education in Nigeria. And we have had issues when challenges arises from these schools, and we had engaged government to see how we can better ensure that some ugly situations that have been recorded in the past do not repeat itself. So that is the function we play in that regards.
Okay.
So there are a few things. You already said that you're more of oversight duty. If somebody was to report a primary school or a secondary school to you that the classroom is overpopulated and the price jumped maybe like 100% increase, if they report to you, what can you do? What will be the process for you? How can you influence or help the parents who find themselves in a situation where they were paying 50,000 naira and then just within a term they are moved into 100K and the class capacity is increased, they feel it's not going to deliver quality to their children?
Yes. Funny enough, we had not recorded any of such reports of indiscriminate increase of private schools. There is a natural tendency of controlling the issue of demand and supply in a free economy like ours. Government had made the opening of private school so open for those who can afford to put in place the minimum standard. So in fixing fee, the natural tendency of demand and supply dictates what fee an average school can charge. And we have seen many schools, private in particular, that have closed down their operations because their income could not meet up their day-to-day operational costs. And they could not have the power to increase beyond what they are currently charging. So this has made some of these schools to close down shop and dispose of their facilities. So these tendencies is what controls what individual school can charge, because government has so much given that opportunity for opening of private school to be open to all and sundry. Virtually, will you see a street or two streets that you don't have one school or the other? And for parents who also find that the existing school their children are attending is affordable, there is also opportunity to get a transfer from a given school to another, even from private to public schools. So I think, to me, the natural tendencies is taking charge of this, and that is sufficient for parents.
Let me jump in here for a second. Let me jump in here for a second, because what you just said made me think to myself that it's like the parents right now are unfortunately having to be faced with a situation whereby every Tom, Dick, and Harry has started a school. So I understand, because it's almost impossible for even the Lagos State government to be able to trace every single private school, because Mrs. John has, in her bedroom, has converted her downstairs house. They won't even know there's a school there. So it's almost impossible for this government to know every school. I understand that. But as a body, is there a way you can support government? Because if I'm a parent of a child in a school that is not registered, because from what you said, it's not all the schools that are registered. Government doesn't know they exist. So is there any way you as a body can support the government where you can ensure you can bring all these people under one umbrella and say, we need to know who you are, where you are, what you do to support you. At least let us have a number of how many private schools do we have in this country.
I disagree totally with you that government cannot know all the schools that are existing in the country, because these schools do not operate in the sky. They operate in one street or the other. And beside that, there have been collaboration between our association, National Association of Operators of Private Schools, and government officials concerning indiscriminate of opening private schools. We have a challenge of situation whereby the policy of government is in the direction of access to education more than quality of education. And where government had failed to provide quality education to all deserving children, this gave room for opening of schools, including the unapproved schools. And as many as schools that are opened, the information is out there in the public. Our association had called, I repeat, we have called government attention to this indiscriminating opening of school. But if government feel there are some areas that are new sites that government attention had not reached, and government does not have plan to reach them in the close period of time, they often allow schools to open indiscriminately, and they try to do little. I wouldn't say they don't attempt. Recently, the Quality Assurance in Lagos State had launched an online registration for all schools, which is for all private schools, either registered or not registered. They are supposed to register their schools, and government could follow up with them. That is ongoing. Before this current administration, the administration before Governor Sanwo-Olu also did what we call school census, where members of the Ministry of Education from, apart from the state ministry offices, we have the district offices that reside in each of the zones.
Yeah.
We also have education departments in all local governments of the country. So it is possible for this team to come together to do what we call education census, to know where this school exists. Recently, Universal Basic Education from Abuja, with their counterpart in each state, the state's Universal Basic Education course, SUBEB, work in conjunction with UBEC, the federal counterpart, work with private schools, National Association of Operators of Private School, NAPS, works with individuals that are into education, NGO,
get the numbers,
and they conducted population of all learners, teachers, schools, and facilities that are available. This is published on Universal Basic Education website. You could assess that and see the number of schools that exist, both registered and unregistered. Government have this information and they can deal with this situation.
Let me go on a quick break. When I come back, we continue with you. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us. We're still talking very quickly on education, and we still have Chief Odubela with us. Nima, Mariam had a question. Final one, please.
I wanted to ask Chief Odubela if, the factors that we consider here is why, school fees will just continue to go up. Is it just that inflation as is going up is what is affecting? Is it just cost of production? Or as schools invest in their school, whatever the cost they invest, you know the way they say it, that ogata wala ragbe kind of thing. So is it because I put in new features in my school?
Say it in English.
That I'm sure he understands.
Some of us, we don't understand.
Maybe because, you put in new features, you renovate your school, and because of that, school fees must go up. Or just that the cost of inflation and the way the economy is what is influencing the increments.
Chief, did you
Thank you so much, if I'm permitted to speak on.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, you have answered the questions by yourself. All the parameters you have mentioned have come to play in determining what the school will charge, including the facility, maintenance, replacement, renovation, teachers' overhead costs, and cost of providing power instructional material in this modern day where technology is leveraged upon to teach. Inflation, teach everything that can affect human existence economically wise has affected school. The facility you spoke about to be maintained from time to time. The cost of buying paint, a bulk of paint, has doubled. The cost of the artisans who apply this paint had tripled. The cost of maintaining teachers in school had gone so much. So everything had been affected, including the cost of producing books, which has affected the cost of textbooks too.
Well,
so at the end of the day,
really, we don't really solve the problem. But the point is that school fees will continue to increase. Obviously, our economic realities are such that many people can't afford it. But the truth is that there's nothing we can do at this time. So we have to leave the conversation hanging at this point. But thank you very much, Chief Odubela, for sharing your thoughts with us this morning. We'll bring you back because I'm very concerned about the numbers. I'm not being able to get an accurate number of private schools in this country. So now that I know that UBEC has done a research, which I'm aware of the census, we'd like to get the figure. It'd be nice to know exactly how many we have, how many are registered. It'd be good to have that.
Mariah, I will get you this information. I can share them with you personally.
Yeah.
I will give you a link.
Okay.
And I must say this, that one of the reasons why we have most unregistered schools in existence and most unqualified personality into school ownership is because even government recognize association of unregistered schools. So where that happened, there will be little we can do. Thank you for having me once again. I will always be available.